What is your advice or some of the techniques for someone to get another person to start opening up about some of the closest stuff to their soul? How do you get somebody to start to
That's,
really open up?
you guys have very good questions.
Mm.
Uh,
Thank
that's
you.
true. You, I think what you do, there are a number of things you can do to help a person open up. Is yourself be open, truly open to receiving whatever they want to talk about. Now, in my practice, one of the things I notice, especially in recent years, is that I used to, when I started out, I was hoping that people would come to me wanting to talk about their dreams or Jungian something or other. And and I discovered that, that's not where people are. People just, they're concerned about their issues, their problems in life. And sometimes, like today, I notice it a lot. People might come to me and they say, I'm really waiting so long to do therapy with you. And then they start talking about their car or talking about, where they live and what they're going to do later. And like, nothing to do whatsoever with what looks like the
Yeah.
material of their life. And what I have come to see, what I like, is that I don't steer that conversation in a different direction. What I do is it's my job to hear what the person is saying with those stories.
Mm.
That there's something that is important and is deeper, but I have to have I have to have the good sense to be able to hear it when they're saying it. So it's I think one of the thing about helping people talk about things is not to force them in a direction you think is good. Rather, you have to force yourself in a direction that you've never considered before.
Mm.
You have to use your imagination and maybe begin to ask questions of where is this headed? What are you really talking about?
Mm.
And that's one thing that helps. Another is to allow repetition. Don't worry about if people repeat the same stories. I like a lot of repetition myself. I love to hear the same stories over and over because they're all a little bit different. Each telling's a little different. And if they're
Right.
telling the story over and over, I think it means that that it's an important one. It's one of the big stories in their life. So I listen for that. I don't judge that. I don't ask for something different. And as we said before, I try to take the conversation deeper. One way I imagine that is that any person can do this. You're just having a conversation with someone, and if you would like to take it to a deeper level, all you have to do is take it down one step. Just take
Yeah.
it down a little bit. Don't try to turn it into a depth analysis,
Mm.
psychoanalysis. Just take it down a step where the emotion is stronger, especially perhaps to a place where you yourself are afraid to go. If you're afraid of something, that means it's probably significant. So
Mm.
you have to go over your barriers as well as help that the other person get over their barriers. It's a two-person job. You go together, but your job as a kind of a leader of this process is to take the risk to bring up things that might take it to a more emotional place or a place where the meaning of it is more significant. And you can do that without too much trouble. I think I do that all the time. It's part of the work. You just try to move it gradually, step by step.
Mhm. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that.
One of the things that caught my ear when you said that was talking about how you can project your own history into these conversations as well. A therapist can do it with a patient, friends and loved ones are doing it with each other all the time. One of the most fascinating parts of your book that I really enjoyed was your conversation around reality and how very often we feel like we're all going around living in an objective reality, like what we perceive in ourselves, in others, in our environment. We perceive all of that to be true. But as you write in the book, every individual's reality is saturated by all these subjective layers, and someone else has their own subjective layers, and you have your own subjective layers, and they're kind of intersecting with each other. I was wondering if you could break down some of the language you used in that section and explain to us what the difference is between the factual, the imaginal, and the imaginary realms. Because now, after reading that section, I'm constantly trying to figure out what realm a thought is occupying. So I thought it was just such an interesting way of breaking up reality.
Yeah, so we live in a world that, as you know, is primarily factual. That's how we think. We love science, modern science, because modern science deals in facts and uses a lot of instruments to make those facts as clear, as perfect as possible. And we trust science because it is so factual. But we don't look at the filters that even the scientists are using. Or I guess some scientists talk about that today a bit, but I don't think we nearly enough are aware of the filters we have. For example, if it's a simple thing, there's so many things. If you are an old guy like me and you're talking to a bunch of young people, you have a whole different filter on life, because my experience of the world has been so different. When I was living in Detroit in those early years, yes, I loved cars. I still love cars. So I was influenced by being in Detroit and what that meant. Now, if I meet somebody who was born in, I don't know, in Africa or Asia, they're going to have a whole different experience from me. They have a different filter. But you can understand that even within, let's say, a group of Americans, they're each going to have their own family filters, their own experience, where they went to school and what they learned and what their father was like and what they did. Did they play in sports? Were they eggheads? Were they nerds? So we have how we see things, and being aware of those filters. That is looking at the imaginal level. It means we're taking those filters, those images seriously. So I might say that, well, okay, someone is telling me now that they are going from job to job in their life, trying to find their place. Well, but boy, that sounds a lot to me like Odysseus. I think of the Greeks. They had this great story of Odysseus, who was this guy who was in the war, and then he tried to get home on a ship, and it took him 10 years because he kept stopping at one island after another. I mean, isn't that the image that so many of us at one time in life might be living? Mm-hmm. We are on an odyssey at times, and we're lured to one island or another, and we're captivated. And we lose ourselves sometimes on one of those islands. You know what it is? You might move to another city, and there it is, another island that Odysseus has landed on, or another job, same idea. Okay, I'm a new job now. That's an island from the point of view of the Odyssey. So there's a story that's imaginal that we might be on. It's not a fact. I'm not actually on an island. Look around. I have no islands. But as a metaphor, I'm on an island. That's where I am right now. That's in the imaginal realm. That's where I am. And if I want to understand somebody, it might really help to know that they are on an odyssey. I mean, at least not to know so much, but for me to see that as a good metaphor for what they're experiencing. So I take that image of the Odyssey very seriously. I may even call the person Odysseus or Ulysses or something, just to make it real. Or I'll say, oh boy, Odysseus has come and has entered your life again. Well, I don't mean that somebody's knocked on your door. What I mean is that the spirit of Odysseus is now in you once again. It's kind of drifted into you, and you're back on this journey. Mm. And so that's the imaginal realm. Now, if someone wanted to say that Odysseus did knock on my door, that's imaginary.
Got it.
And in that case, we have a lot of work to do.